Section 6 of the American Rivals of Sherlock Holmes. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The American Rivals of Sherlock Holmes. Mystery of the Scarlet Thread. By Jacques Futrelle. Part 1. 1. The Thinking Machine. Professor Augustus S.F.X. van Dusen, Doctor of Philosophy, Doctor of Law, Fellow of the Royal Society, Doctor of Medicine, etc., scientist and logician, listened intently and without comment to a weird, seemingly inexplicable story. Hutchinson Hedge, reporter, was telling it. The bowed figure of the savant lay at ease in a large chair. The enormous head, with its bushy, yellow hair, was thrown back, the thin, white fingers were pressed tip to tip, and the blue eyes, narrowed to mere slits, squinted aggressively upward. The scientist was in a receptive mood. "From the beginning, every fact, you know," he had requested. "It's all out in the Back Bay," the reporter explained. "There is a big apartment house there, a fashionable establishment in a side street just off Commonwealth Avenue. It is 5 stories in all, and is cut up into small suites of 2 and 3 rooms with a bath. These suites are handsomely, even luxuriously furnished, and are occupied by people who can afford to pay big rents. Generally these are young unmarried men, although in several cases they are husband and wife. It is a house of every modern improvement: elevator service, hall boys, library doorman, spacious corridors, and all that. It has both the gas and electric systems of lighting. Tenants are at liberty to use either or both. A young broker, Weldon Henley, occupies one of the handsomest of these suites, being on the 2nd floor in front. He has met with considerable success in the street. He is a bachelor and lives there alone. There is no personal servant. He dabbles in photography as a hobby, and is said to be remarkably expert. Recently there was a report that he was to be married this winter to a beautiful Virginia girl who has been visiting Boston from time to time, a Miss Lipscomb, Charlotte Lipscomb, of Richmond. Henley has never denied or affirmed this rumor, although he has been asked about it often. Miss Lipscomb is impossible of access even when she visits Boston. Now she is in Virginia, I understand, but will return to Boston later in the season." The reporter paused, lighted a cigarette, and leaned forward in his chair, gazing steadily into the inscrutable eyes of the scientist. "When Henley took the suite, he requested that all the electric lighting apparatus be removed from his apartments," he went on. "He had taken a long lease of the place, and this was done. Therefore he uses only gas for lighting purposes, and he usually keeps one of his gas jets burning low all night." "Bad for his health," commented the scientist. "Now comes the mystery of the affair," the reporter went on. "It was 5 weeks or so ago. Henley retired as usual about midnight. He locked his door on the inside, he is positive of that, and awoke about 4 o'clock in the morning nearly asphyxiated by gas. He was barely able to get up and open the window to let in the fresh air. The gas jet he had left burning was out, and the suite was full of gas. Accident, possibly," said the Thinking Machine. "A draught through the apartments, a slight diminution of gas pressure, 100 possibilities." "So it was presumed," said the reporter. "Of course it would have been impossible for—" "Nothing is impossible," said the other, tartly. "Don't say that. It annoys me exceedingly." "Well, then, it seems highly improbable that the door had been opened, or that anyone came into the room and did this deliberately," the newspaper man went on, with a slight smile. "So Henley said nothing about this, attributed it to accident. The next night he lighted his gas as usual, but he left it burning a little brighter. The same thing happened again." "Ah!" and the Thinking Machine changed his position a little. "The second time—" "And again he awoke just in time to save himself," said Hatch. "Still he attributed the affair to accident, and determined to avoid a recurrence of the affair by doing away with the gas at night. Then he got a small night lamp, and used this for a week or more." "Why does he have a light at all?" asked the scientist, testily. "I can hardly answer that," replied Hatch. "I may say, however, that he is of a very nervous temperament, and gets up frequently during the night. He reads occasionally when he can't sleep. In addition to that, he has slept with the light going all his life. It's a habit." "Go on." "One night he looked for the night lamp, but it had disappeared. At least he couldn't find it, so he lighted the gas again. The fact of the gas having twice before gone out had been dismissed as a serious possibility. Next morning at 5 o'clock a bell boy, passing through the hall, smelled gas and made a quick investigation. He decided it came from Henley's place, and rapped on the door. There was no answer. It ultimately developed that it was necessary to smash in the door. There, on the bed, they found Henley unconscious, with the gas pouring into the room from the jet which he had left lighted. He was revived in the air but for several hours was deathly sick. Why was the door smashed in? Asked the thinking machine. Why not unlocked? It was done because Henley had firmly barred it, Hedge explained. He had become suspicious, I suppose, and after the second time he always barred his door and fastened every window before he went to sleep. There may have been a fear that someone used the key to enter. Well, asked the scientist, after that? 3 weeks or so elapsed, bringing the affair down to this morning, Hedge went on. Then the same thing happened a little differently. For instance, after the third time the gas went out, Henley decided to find out for himself what caused it, and so expressed himself to a few friends who knew of the mystery. Then, night after night, he lighted the gas as usual and kept watch. It was never disturbed during all that time, burning steadily all night. What sleep he got was in daytime. Last night Henley lay awake for a time, then, exhausted and tired, fell asleep. This morning early he woke. The room was filled with gas again. In some way my city editor heard of it and asked me to look into the mystery. That was all. The two men were silent for a long time, and finally the thinking machine turned to the reporter. Does anyone else in the house keep gas going all night? He asked. I don't know, was the reply. Most of them, I know, use electricity. Nobody else has been overcome as he has been? No. Plumbers have minutely examined the lighting system all over the house and found nothing wrong. Does the gas in the house all come through the same meter? Yes, so the manager told me. I suppose it possible that someone shut it off there on these nights long enough to extinguish the lights all over the house, then turn it on again. That is, presuming that it was done purposely. Do you think it was an attempt to kill Henley? It might be, was the reply. Find out for me just who in the house uses gas. Also, if anyone else leaves the light burning all night. Also, what opportunity anyone would have to get at the meter and learn something about Henley's love affair with Miss Lipscomb. Is there anyone else? If so, who? Where does he live? When you find out these things, come back here. That afternoon at 1 o'clock Hatch returned to the apartments of the thinking machine with excitement plainly apparent on his face. Well? Asked the scientist. A French girl, Louise Renier, employed as a maid by Mrs. Standing in the house, was found dead in her room on the 3rd floor today at noon, Hatch explained quickly. It looks like suicide. How? Asked the thinking machine. The people who employed her, husband and wife, have been away for a couple of days, Hatch rushed on. She was in the suite alone. This noon she had not appeared. There was an odor of gas and the door was broken in. Then she was found dead. With the gas turned on? With the gas turned on. She was asphyxiated. Dear me, exclaimed the scientist. He arose and took up his hat. Let's go and see what this is all about. 2. When Professor Van Dusen and Hatch arrived at the apartment house, they had been preceded by the medical examiner and the police. Detective Mallory, whom both knew, was moving about in the apartment where the girl had been found dead. The body had been removed and a telegram sent to employers in New York. Too late, said Mallory as they entered. What was it, Mr. Mallory? Asked the scientist. Suicide, was the reply. No question of it. It happened in this room. And he led the way into the 3rd room of the suite. The maid, Miss Renier, occupied this and was here alone last night. Mr. and Mrs. Standing, her employers, have gone to New York for a few days. She was left alone and killed herself. Without further questioning, the thinking machine went over to the bed from which the girl's body had been taken, and stooping beside it, picked up a book. It was a novel by the Duchess. He examined this critically, then, standing on the chair, he examined the gas jet. This done, he stepped down and went to the window of the little room. Finally, the thinking machine turned to the detective. Just how much was the gas turned on? He asked. Turned on full, was the reply. Were both the doors of the room locked? Both, yes. Any cotton or cloth or anything of the sort stuffed in the cracks of the window? No, it's a tight-fitting window anyway. Are you trying to make a mystery out of this? Cracks in doors stuffed? The thinking machine went on. No. There was a smile about the detective's lips. The thinking machine, on his knees, examined the bottom of one of the doors that which led into the hall. The lock of this door had been broken when employees burst into the room. Having satisfied himself, here and at the bottom of the other door, which connected with the bedroom adjoining, the thinking machine again climbed on a chair and examined the doors at the top. Both transoms closed, I suppose? He asked. Yes, was the reply. You can't make anything but suicide out of it, explained the detective. The medical examiner has given that as his opinion, and everything I find indicates it. All right, broke in the thinking machine abruptly. Don't let us keep you. After a while Detective Mallory went away. Hatch and the scientist went down to the office floor where they saw the manager. He seemed to be greatly distressed, but was willing to do anything he could in the matter. Is your night engineer perfectly trustworthy? Asked the thinking machine. Perfectly, was the reply. One of the best and most reliable men I have ever met. Alert and wide awake. Can I see him a moment? The night man, I mean. "Certainly," was